My name is Ryan, and I want to say up front that I'm not the kind of person who spooks easily. I'm 6'2". I've worked construction for 9 years. I do not scare. So when I tell you that I left that stadium in Doha with my hands still shaking, I need you to understand what that means. Marcus and I have been talking about going to World Cup since we were in college. He's my best friend, my roommate for 3 years back in Austin, and the only person I know who takes soccer as seriously as I do. We're both gay, and we'd done our research before booking Qatar 2022. Read every advisory, checked every forum, debated back and forth for weeks about whether it was safe for us to go. We decided to go. We kept the affection to minimum in public, which wasn't comfortable, but we weren't there for a political statement. We were there for the football. The match was everything we'd hoped for. It was a group stage, a Brazil game, and the crowd was the most alive I've ever felt inside a building. We were Section C, upper tier, and the view was perfect. Marcus spent the whole first half standing, and I spent it watching him be completely, unreservedly happy, which is one of my favorite things to see. We grabbed food at halftime and got separated for about 10 minutes in the concourse lines. He found me at the concession stand, and we started heading back toward our section. That's when I noticed a guy. He was following us. I only noticed because Marcus made a wrong turn down a side concourse, and we doubled back, and the guy doubled back too. Tall, maybe mid-30s, dark jacket. He wasn't looking at us when I looked at him, but he was there, and then there again. I pulled Marcus aside near a pillar and said, "Don't react. There's a guy who's been behind us since we left the food stand." Marcus has good instincts. He didn't look. He just said, "Same direction or same distance?" "Both," I said. We made a decision to walk to the nearest visible security post, which was back toward the main entrance on level 2. We moved like we knew exactly where we were going. The concourse was still packed enough that I had to keep checking over my shoulder to see if he was still there. He was, always about 20 feet back, keeping pace. I had this thought, maybe he's just going the same way. The stadium has maybe 60,000 people in it. Statistically, someone is always going the same direction you are. But then the crowd thinned out as we turned down a quieter service-side corridor, one of those stretches that only goes one place, and he turned too. Marcus said quietly, "I see him." "Yeah," I said. We didn't run. Running draws attention in the wrong direction, away from witnesses, toward confrontation. We kept walking deliberately toward the level 2 checkpoint. When we got there, 2 security officers were standing by the turnstile gates. I kept my voice low and told one of them that we believed someone was following us, and I described the man and where we come from. The officer looked past me. He said, "The man in the dark jacket?" I said yes. The man in the dark jacket was standing about 30 feet away, looking at his phone. The officer radioed something. His partner started walking toward the man, and then something happened that I still don't fully understand. The man looked up from his phone before the officer was close enough to say anything. He looked directly at me and Marcus, not at the approaching officer. At us. He said something I couldn't hear. He was too far away. Then he turned and walked back the way we'd come. The officer followed him. We waited. The first officer came back about 4 minutes later and told us the man said he was just looking for a restroom and lost his bearings. No prior incidents. No reason to detain him. I asked if they could check the camera footage from the concourse. He said that wasn't something he could discuss. We went back to our seats for the second half. And Marcus was quieter than he'd been all week. After the match, on the way back to the hotel, he said, "It might have been nothing." "Yeah," I said, "but he heard us talking at the food stand." Marcus said, "He was close enough. That first stand where I got the fries, he was right next to us." I hadn't told Marcus that part. I hadn't even fully registered it until he said it. I thought back. The food stand. A man in a dark jacket, close enough to hear 2 guys talking to each other the way Marcus and I talk to each other. Easy, familiar, comfortable. We don't know what he intended. We never found out. But I keep coming back to the moment he looked up from his phone before the officer reached him. He knew someone was coming. That means he'd been watching us the whole time. The Lusail Stadium looked like something out of a dream I'd been saving for the Qatar trip. since the bracket was announced. 2 years of overtime shifts at the logistics company. 2 years of telling myself it would be worth it. My partner, Demi, thought I was insane for going alone. She wasn't wrong, but she also knew better than to try and stop me. I flew into Doha on a Wednesday, checked into a tiny hotel near the Pearl, and spent the first 2 days barely sleeping. The city felt electric in a way I hadn't expected. Thousands of people from every corner of the world crammed into this gleaming desert bubble, all moving toward the same thing. My ticket was for the quarterfinal, Section 114, row 22, seat 7. I got there an hour early, partly because I didn't want to miss anything and partly because I'm the kind of person who can't relax until I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. I found my row, shuffled past a group of Brazilian fans already going through their third round of chants, and settled in. The seat next to mine, seat 8, was empty. That wasn't unusual. People file in at all different times. I put my bag down, opened a water bottle, and watched the stadium fill up around me. What was unusual was the man sitting in seat 9. He was watching me before I even sat down. I noticed in my peripheral vision first the stillness of him against all the movement around us. Everyone else was talking, pointing at the pitch, pulling out their phones. He was just sitting with his hands folded in his lap, looking directly at me. He was maybe 50, heavy set, wearing a plain white shirt with no team colors or any indicator which side he was there to support. I gave him a quick nod. He didn't nod back. I looked down at my phone and told myself it was nothing. 5 minutes later, I glanced over. He was still looking at me, not at the pitch, not at the crowd, at me. I shifted in my seat and turned slightly away, angling toward the Brazilian group on my left. A woman named Carla had already struck up a conversation with me about the flight from Sao Paulo. I leaned into it, laughing at something she said, and when I turned back, the man in seat 9 was now looking at the field. I exhaled. Then the teams came out, and the noise became something physical, something that moved through your chest rather than your ears. I forgot about him for probably 20 minutes. When I remembered and looked over, seat 8 was no longer empty. A teenage girl was sitting in it, maybe 16, wearing a yellow jersey. She had earbuds in and was recording something on her phone. The man in seat 9 was not watching the match. He was watching her. His whole body was turned a few degrees in her direction. Not enough to be obvious, enough that I caught it. His eyes hadn't moved from the side of her face in the entire time I'd been watching him. I looked around. Her parents, or whoever she'd come with, didn't appear to be nearby. The seats on the other side of the man were occupied by 2 guys deep in conversation with each other. I told myself it could be anything. Maybe he recognized her. Maybe he thought she was recording him, and he was waiting to say something, but he never said anything. The girl stood up during a close call near the goal, screaming with everyone else, and he stood up too, not toward the pitch, but facing slightly toward her, his hand moving up near her left shoulder before the crowd shifted, and he lowered again. I watched that. I watched his hand go up and come back down. When everyone sat again, I leaned across the empty seat that was no longer between us. "Hey," I said, "do you know her?" He turned to me slowly. Up close, something about his expression didn't fit the question. It wasn't annoyance. It wasn't confusion. It was the look of a person recalculating. "Tourist," he said, with an accent I couldn't place. "Just watching." "The match is that way," I said, and pointed at the pitch. He smiled. Then he turned back toward the field like I hadn't spoken. I pulled out my phone and texted Demi. "Something's off with this guy next to me. Watching a young girl." She texted back immediately. "Tell security." Simple as that. Tell security. I looked around for a steward and couldn't spot one from where I was sitting. I thought about leaving my seat to find one, but I didn't want to leave the girl alone in that row. So I did something that felt both reasonable and completely useless. I took out my phone and angled it so the camera was pointing toward him. He noticed within 30 seconds. His eyes moved to my phone, then to my face. "You're filming me," he said. "I'm on my phone." I said, "You should stop." "I should find a steward." I said, "That's what I should do." Something shifted in him. It was small, a tightening around the jaw, a barely perceptible stillness. Then he stood up, smoothed his shirt, and began moving along the row, stepping over feet, excusing himself past the two guys who barely noticed him. I stood up and watched him go. He made his way up the aisle steps without looking back, and then disappeared into the concourse tunnel. The girl with the yellow jersey looked up at me with one earbud out. What was that about? I don't know, I said. Do you have someone here with you? She said her dad was a few rows up, closer to the aisle. I told her she should probably go sit with him. She looked at me for a second with that expression teenagers get when they're deciding whether an adult is being dramatic or serious. She went, I found a steward during halftime and described a man. White shirt, no markings, heavy set, around 50. The steward radioed it in and told me they'd pass it along to the security team. I asked if they had him on camera. The steward said the system covered all entry and exit points. But here's the thing. I stayed for the second half and scanned the concourse exits every few minutes. I never saw the man again. Not in section 114. Not anywhere. What I did see, about 40 minutes into the second half, was a steward moving quickly down toward the section 3 rows in front of mine. He stopped next to an empty seat and spent a few minutes looking at something on the ground. I couldn't see what it was from where I sat. After the match, I tried to walk past that area on my way out. Another steward was standing there, not moving people along, just standing. The seat had a small bag tucked underneath it, one of those cheap shoulder bags. Nobody was collecting it. I don't know whose it was. I don't know if it had anything to do with the man in seat 9. I never found out. I should explain why I was alone. My sister Sophia and I had bought matching tickets to the 2022 World Cup 6 months before the tournament. It was her idea. She'd been the football fanatic in our family growing up in Milan, and when Italy didn't qualify, she said we'd support whoever was playing the most exciting football and make a holiday of it. 3 weeks before the trip, her appendix ruptured. She spent 8 days in the hospital. By the time she was discharged, there was no way she was flying to Qatar. I almost didn't go without her, but the tickets were paid for, the hotel was booked, and my mother, in her very specific way, told me that staying home out of guilt was not loyalty. It was waste. So I went. My hotel was a mid-range place about 20 minutes from the stadium by shuttle. Clean, efficient, not much else to say about it. I was in room 318, which was on the corner of the 3rd floor, and my window looked out onto a side street that ran parallel to the hotel parking lot. I arrived on a Monday. The match I had tickets for was Thursday. The first 2 days I spent exploring the city, the souks, the waterfront, the fan zones. I'm a journalist by training. Even if I work in corporate communications now, and I find myself looking at things in a specific way when I travel, the exits, who is watching who, which vendor has been at the same corner all day. On Tuesday evening, I came back to the hotel around 9 and stopped at the vending machine on the 3rd floor landing. While I was waiting for my water bottle to drop, I noticed a woman standing near the window at the end of the corridor. She was looking out at the parking lot. Not unusual. People stand at windows. What caught my attention was that she was still there when I came out of my room at 11 to get ice. Same position, same window. I didn't stop to stare, but I slowed down enough to see that she was watching something specific. Her eyes weren't moving the way eyes move when you're just looking out at nothing. She was tracking something. I got my ice and went back inside. In the morning, I forgot about it entirely. I had a full day planned and didn't think about the woman at the window until Wednesday evening, when she knocked on my door. I wasn't expecting anyone. I checked the peephole. She was standing back from the door, far enough that I could see most of her. She was small, maybe 45, with close-cropped hair and a lanyard around her neck with what looked like a hotel ID badge on it. Her expression was neutral. "Yes," I said through the door. "Housekeeping," she said. "There's a water pressure issue on this floor. We need to check your bathroom." I didn't report a water pressure issue. I said, "It is from a unit above you," she said. "Standard check. It will take 2 minutes." I thought about it. "What's your name?" I said. A pause. Short. Almost nothing. Elena. Can you hold your badge up to the peephole?" Another short pause. Then the badge came up. I couldn't read the name on it from the peephole angle. The photo was too small, but the badge looked legitimate. The hotel's logo on it, the right color strip, and yet I called down to the front desk. I had the number saved in my phone because I'd needed it the night before about the shuttle schedule. The man who answered said no. There was no water pressure issue on the third floor, and no maintenance request had been submitted for my room. I stood at the door. She knocked again, 3 times even, not aggressive, patient. One moment, I called out. I went to the window and looked down at the parking lot. There was a car parked with its engine running, no one visibly inside, but the exhaust was going. It had been there, based on the condensation pattern on the tarmac, for a while. I called the front desk again. Different person this time. I told her my room number and said a woman claiming to be housekeeping had knocked on my door and that I'd verified with her colleague there was no maintenance issue. I gave a physical description of the woman and said I had not opened the door. I heard typing. Then, "Ma'am, we don't have anyone on shift named Elena in housekeeping right now." I asked her to send actual security to the 3rd floor. "Yes, right away." I heard the woman in the corridor move, not away, sideways. Her footsteps went past my door rather than back toward the elevator. Then nothing. Security arrived 4 minutes later. 2 men. I opened my door and found an empty corridor. They checked the stairwell at both ends. Nothing. The duty manager came up shortly after and took a report. He was apologetic in the way people are when they're also a little skeptical. He offered to move my room. I said yes. They moved me to the 2nd floor, room 214, facing the front of the building. I didn't sleep well that night. I kept turning over the details. The 2-minute notice she'd given herself. The fact that she hadn't pushed back when I asked for her name. The car idling in the parking lot. The next day I went to my match. Argentina in the quarterfinal. The stadium was extraordinary, and the game went to penalties, and the crowd went absolutely out of their minds. And for about 2 hours, I forgot everything. On the shuttle back, I sat next to a British woman named Claire who worked in hospitality consulting. She'd been advising venues on large event crowd management. I found myself telling her about the woman at my door. She didn't seem surprised. She said that large international tournaments create what she called predatory opportunity windows, events where foot traffic is so dense, so international, and so temporary that bad actors can operate with relative ease. Solo women travelers were targeted more frequently than most people realized, she said. Hotels near stadium zones were surveilled in advance. Surveilled by who? I asked. People who want to know which rooms are occupied by a single person, which rooms have a woman alone, which shifts to real hotel staff work, and where the cameras are. I thought about the woman standing at the corridor window on Tuesday night. I thought about how long she might have been watching to build that picture. I won the competition. To tell her the worst part, the man at the front desk, the first one I called, had never asked for my room number. He hadn't needed to, which means whoever picked up that call already knew exactly where I was staying. I've been back home for over a year now. Sophia is fully recovered and refuses to let me tell this story without pointing out that if her appendix hadn't ruptured, she would have been in that room with me. She's not wrong. 2 heads are better than 1. I've thought about that a lot. If you're heading to a World Cup this year, next year, any year, go. The experience is unlike anything else. But go with someone. Trust your instincts the way you trust a VAR replay. Look again, look closer, and don't wave off what you clearly saw. The crowd is loud. The stakes are high. And not everyone in that stadium is there for football. Stay safe out there.